Welcome back to the BizBlend Podcast. As you all know, this is the space where business, life, and leadership all collide in very real, very human ways. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and listeners, today we are going right into a topic that is exciting and honestly a little uncomfortable. Leadership and technology, when the tech itself could literally change how we detect cancer or even prevent school shootings. And let me tell you, listeners, my guest today is not just another leadership speaker with a slide deck. He's building something that sits at the intersection of quantum physics, public safety, and massive responsibility. Beaushot is the co founder and CEO of Base Molecular Resonance Technologies. In under 2 years, he and his team have turned a quantum physics discovery into a validated technology with 20 patent assets and a third party valuation of $60.3 billion. dollars. Their tech claims to detect cancers, weapons, explosives, and every element on the periodic table. Non invasive, safer than Wi Fi, built for mass market affordability. On top of that, Bo has been named one of the top 10 most influential leadership speakers of 2023, cited alongside names like Jordan Peterson, Simon Sinek, Malcolm Gladwell, and John Maxwell. Yeah. He has spoken in 35 countries, listeners, to over 1 million people, advised major brands like Harley Davidson and John Hancock, and served as president of the American Leadership Foundation for 15 years. So, yes, this is a guy who understands leadership in rooms full of executives and now in labs full of quantum scientists. Bo, welcome to BizBlend, and I'm absolutely honored to have you here with us today.
Well, you are so very kind, and thank you for that very generous introduction. It's so funny when you do that. I sit there, I go, I don't think I know this guy, thank you for that. I'm just no, I'm honored to be here, and anything I can do to help. I will make one correction. I do this along with my other co-founder, Lee Duke, who is the person that brought this technology to both of us and is just one of my dearest friends. He's also a business partner, and he's also somebody that I've invested with. So I want to make sure to share that with you as well. But that was a very kind introduction, and I'm looking forward to today.
Absolutely. I really love that you mentioned, because um, I think humility is very rare nowadays. So thank you so much, Bo. And I'm really glad you're here because um, when I was going through the introduction, I was just kind of, um, doing my all, homework or back end work. I feel your work, it touches on so many different aspects here, not only business strategy, but then public safety, ethics, and I mean, honestly, the future of what is possible. So listeners, before we get tactical, I want to set the tone for all of you. We are not just hyping tech today. We are looking at leadership decisions behind it, the tough calls, the trade-offs, and the human impact. So let us get into it. And Bo, to begin with, you spent years on global stages teaching leadership. And now you are leading a company along with Lee that claims one of the most important scientific breakthroughs of the last 50 years. What was that exact moment or turning point, where you kind of said that I'm willing to put my name and reputation on this technology and build a company around it?
That's a great question. It came as in response to a phone call I received from my business partner, Lee Duke. I had moved out to Montana when COVID hit. Things kind of went haywire around the world, and so people were starting to work from home. And I remember telling my wife, I said, "Where do you want home to be?" And she said, "Well, let's go to Montana." So we bought this beautiful ranch in the western part of the United States in Montana. And I came out here to semi-retire. I'm 66. I came out here to semi-retire at the time, maybe run for governor of the state of Montana. And one day I got this phone call, this unexpected phone call from Lee, who said, I want you to do this with me. This had been a technology that was birthed in his family. He said, I want you to do this with me. Will you come with me and let's take this to the world like it should be. And quite frankly, it was one of those things of trust. And I think this is a crucial aspect of leadership. It was embedded in trust. I trusted Lee Duke. If Lee Duke told me in the middle of the day that the sun wasn't shining, I would believe him. And so it was really in a simple phone call with someone I trusted that I was willing to go all in with him, change my future plans because it was an opportunity to be a part of a technology that at that time needed validation. We didn't have it. At that time needed additional patents. We didn't have them. Um, but I trusted him. And today we have two incredibly validated studies. We have over 20 patent assets. We've got the world has opened. We have a board that is just an incredible group of people. But it was when he said this to me. He said, "If we could eradicate school shootings, if we had the technology that could catch cancer at its earliest stages, and I'm a cancer survivor, so catch cancer at its earliest stages, if we had a technology that could prevent someone's child from going off to war and stepping on an IED, no matter what country you come from, this is a horrific moment for people. If we could eradicate some of the worst outcomes for people in their lives, if we had the capability to do it, would I want to be a part of it?" And I honestly don't know how you say no to that. And so for me, it was a turning point in my life, but it was a blessing as well. So it came in a phone call.
That is really really interesting. One thing which I personally I feel that, and I believe this, although I think in today's modern day and age, it's kind of a rarity, is this unshakable trust. When it comes to people, and especially in leadership in workplaces. I mean, very interestingly, if you look at the statistics, Bo, I mean, I not sure whether you would agree with me or not. Like, when it comes to startups, when two or three people, founders, co-founders, they're building something. Um, Often the major reason behind the fallout of the startup or this idea is this kind of a mistrust or some kind of friction between the founders or the co-founders. So I think that is something, the unshakable trust here, that is it's a rare thing, Bo. So I'm really
Yeah,
happy to. Mm,
can I just tag on to that if I could? Because you said it so eloquently up front when you talked about humility. I think one of the listen, I think everybody has an ego. To some degree, small, large, it doesn't really matter. It could be minute, but it has to be under control. One of the things I learned years and years ago in my leadership journey, that nobody is that good. There's not one person that's that good. And you are great when you surround yourself with people that are better than you. And one of the blessings that myself and my business partner have is we trust each other. We also know that we're better because we have each other. He brings skills to the table that I don't bring and vice versa. And I watch a lot of businesses fall apart because egos get out of control. People
yep.
think they're always right, and they contradict some of the most important aspects of leadership. For myself, we have a shared vision for what we want to accomplish. We're both willing to do whatever it takes to get there, as long as it's moral and legal and ethical, and do the right thing no matter what. So yeah, I agree. I watch a lot of companies fall apart because how somebody gets somewhere, they power and money have a tendency to corrupt good people, or at their core, people that are corruptible, I guess. But I think that's where humility and trust really play a big part of this. I think you're very perceptive there.
Absolutely, absolutely, no doubt in there, Bo. Um, another question comes to my mind, since because um this really looks like the responsible tech that kind of sometimes becomes like a wishful thinking for people out there, because until now we as a common person, I will have tons of negative aspects when anybody would ask me about tech. It destroys uh, the humanity at an individual level. It is destroying the climate. It's destroying the planet. It's always, it ends up always for just profits and numbers, and to kind of fill the pockets of individuals out there. But when you made that decision, Bo, along with Lee, what was the biggest internal risk you felt? Was it the scientific credibility? Was it financial risk? Was it pushback, from the big wigs, or the fear of being wrong at that scale?
It's interesting you say that. Number one, we weren't afraid. I can say that to you. We were both entrepreneurs by nature, business people by nature, and so we have always kind of gone against the grain, gone against conventional wisdom, because I think most, and I mean this so respectfully, I think most people travel in the wrong direction in life. They think of the wrong things. That's why you find a handful of executives, senior leaders in companies that seem to land in the right place, is because they're willing to be contrarians in certain ways. So when it came to the tech, listen, we didn't have validation. We went to the Center for Applied Innovation, to a world-class physicist there, to come from York, England, at York St. John University, to do the initial validation study, so that, because what we found, and we knew that we needed this up front, because we're talking about something that literally has never been done before. Literally never been done before. So when you hear about it, it's like, gosh, is that even possible? But I would say, I used to talk to people in the beginning. I say, yeah, but the combustion engine wasn't possible. The internet wasn't possible. Cellular technology wasn't possible. Electricity wasn't possible. Manned flight wasn't possible. None of these things were possible or believed until they were. And so we had to bridge that gap of, is this really true, to, oh my goodness, it is. And that comes with rigorous scientific tests and trials. And we went through, and I can't yet announce where this other one came through, but it'll be announced in the next couple weeks, that I don't, you couldn't get much better than this. Um, but yeah, so we went through, we knew we were going to face, is this possible? Um, the financial part, we've been very, very blessed financially in life. And so it was, there are things in life that are worth their risk. And you have to be able to assess risk well. And then at the end of your assessment, you just got to jump off the diving board and get wet. So facing people that would, there's this, you'll appreciate this, as many people as you talk to, especially in the engineering, physicist, scientific world. People know what they know, and they're comfortable in what they know. But when something comes along that they don't know, it's easier for them to say it's not possible than, I need to learn about it. And and so we went through that phase with a certain group. But what we found at the end of the day is an awakened group of people that were open to possibilities, that said, why can't this be true? Why can't this be real? Let's look into it. And when we did that, the world literally opened up to us, and people's minds opened up, and now we're sitting in a unique position with that. It's not us, but the technology is, we have a phrase in the United States, it's one of one. There's only one like it in the world, and that's why we feel a great responsibility to shepherd this properly and to lead this ethically, because it's not just, listen, it's a business, so of course there's money involved. But this is so much more important than the money that's involved in it. We have an opportunity to save millions of lives, billions of dollars, or this technology does, not us, billions of dollars, and mostly unlimited pain and suffering. And we need to shepherd that well.
That is so well put, Bo. That is so well put. And that brings me, you know, to the next question, especially when it comes to engineering technology. Now, Bo, like, when we have, so it's kind of a passion, when there are engineers, scientists creating something, building something for the betterment of the entire humanity. Of course, there's no doubt so much passion, risk, unpredictability, so many factors playing their role there. And then there comes the business. So there's always this um, a friction kind of assumed that um, in the long run, the pursuit of business or profit will defeat the purpose, what engineering or science have kind of put it into. Do you think, or I mean, I would love to know your opinion on this. Like, do you feel that in the long run, maybe the pursuit of money or profit will kind of, defeat the purpose here?
That's not an unfair comment. Here's where this is what I would suggest, is I think you have to get to the core, the heart of what drives the leader. What drives the leader? Listen, you have to keep a business in business. That's not even debatable. A business has to be in business in order to do good. You've got to, it's like when you're on an airplane and the air masks drop from the ceiling. What they always tell you is put your mask on first before you put it on your child. If you can't breathe, you can't save anyone. And so of course in business you have to stay in business. But the reality is if you look to the core of a leader, if their passion and their drive is money, then the results that they want to pursue are financially related. I'm talking now beyond the health of the business. I'm talking about what the greed that you see. It just seeps into a lot of companies around the world. If their
Mm,
passion involved is doing the right thing to serve humanity on a bigger scale, they still have to stay in business, but they make decisions that serve humanity on a broader scale. And it really is at the core of who these people are, how they've been trained, who were their mentors, how did they learn to lead? Because people that the thing about founders of an organization, if the vision that they cast for the people that follow them is bold and large, it will bring people in, but it won't keep people in unless they stay true to the mission and the vision that they've projected for people. And so for us, in our case, and look, I'm a very flawed person. I think all of us are, but I will tell you that the driving for we turn down investors because they're not aligned with us. We
mm,
turn away opportunities because it doesn't align itself with us. I want to at the end of my life to look back on my life and say, what did you do in your life that made a difference for other people and that impacted people in a positive way? Because I've made my money. This isn't a journey for riches. This is a journey for impact for us.
mm, mm. Yeah, and uh, it's very interesting, because um we see so many examples out there. I mean, companies which have started, it's like the artist. It all started with the artist or the idea of the creator, but then in the long run, the entire existence completely like removed that idea of the artist or the creator who started it from the scratch. So I think this is such an important kind of, it's debatable, but then I think it's a very important conversation which I think is applicable for all the business or startups out there, because people will have brilliant ideas, but then, there's all the noise around investment, money, whether your company can survive for the first 5 years or not,
Sure.
whether your product or service is doing good out there, whether there's a market fit or not, many factors here.
Right.
The next part of the conversation, I think this is such an interesting thing. Hey, listeners, before we move on to the next part of the conversation here on BizBlend, I would just like all of you, if you aren't, or if you are finding this conversation interesting, do show your love by subscribing to us. Hit the follow button and share this episode with your friends, your loved ones, your colleagues. And yeah, let's move on. And I'm personally very, very curious here, Bo. Like, you describe this technology as um, non-invasive and safer than Wi-Fi, which is a strong statement. At the same time, people are already anxious about 5G, AI, surveillance, EMF, and all of it. Now, if a parent or a teacher hears, okay, this machine can detect weapons or cancer from a distance, the first reaction let's just imagine that sounds like mind reading. That is not true. That isn't.
No, it's okay. It's fair. Let me explain to you what happens. Let me explain to you how this works.
Yeah.
And it does sound like something out of Star Wars, but so did the internet, right?
Yeah.
It sounded like something out of Star Wars at one time, and was, quite frankly. So when you think about it, so picture this: we have a transmitting antenna and a receiving antenna. If you have to go to the core of uh, physics and look at an atomic structure. In the center, you have a nucleus, which is neutrons and protons. And I'm going to give a real simple explanation for this so people can wrap their arms around it. So you've got that, and then around that, in what looks like in the Bohr's model, which we know is no longer an accurate model, but it's easy for people to see. You have the electrons, so it looks kind of like a solar system. In reality, what it is those electrons are really waves. They're these waves that just continue to go out. But
Mhm.
just picture it as a solar system. We know that every atomic structure spins. And when it spins, it makes a sound. If you hold up the pen that you write with, that's made up of countless atoms that make molecules. But that pen is emitting a sound. You'll never you can't hear it, but it emits right, a molecular frequency, so to speak. What we do, and that's known science. We didn't come up with that. What we do is we have a frequency identification protocol for every element on the periodic table and up to 200 types of cancers and other diseases. This took years to develop. We've been in business 2 years. This has been in process for a couple decades. We have this reservoir of knowledge on what these frequencies are. So we have a transmitting and a receiving antenna. We transmit a specific frequency looking for a specific thing. Let's say it's nitrocellulose. Nitrocellulose is the explosive element in gunpowder, which is in a bullet, which is in a gun. So we're not looking for the gun or the bullet or the gunpowder. We're specifically looking to detect nitrocellulose. We transmit this frequency in a direction. Now, we can do it in 360 degrees. It doesn't matter. We transfer it, let's say, in a direction. If nitrocellulose is present, and the more volume there is, the further we can go, and I'll explain that in a minute. Let's say this pattern, this wave, this harmless wave pattern, goes out and it goes over, around, through that nitrocellulose. That frequency, and if you go to YouTube right now and you look at tuning forks, and if they're tuned to the same frequency, you could hit one tuning fork, never touch the other one, and it starts to make a noise because
Yeah.
they share a frequency. When our transmitting wave goes over that nitrocellulose, it turns it from a stable state to a more active state. And then technically what it does is it sings out. It's the technical terminology, it sings out. Now here's what makes our technology unique. We've created a magnetic line to that element, and it comes back to us, and we can hear it on a we hear it in a sound, we can see it in a wave, we can put it on a computer. For demonstration purposes, we do it in a sound, and it's instantaneous. And in our validation study, for example, with the Center for Applied Innovation at York St. John University, we detected a 22 caliber bullet at 71 feet. We detected a fully loaded AR-15 at 580 feet, 10 out of 10 times through multiple buildings. We detect cancer in blind studies, the difference between breast cancer or prostate cancer or lung cancer, whatever. Because every one of these, every disease, for example, has a specific frequency, and we're able to hear it. What makes this revolutionary is the ability to hear it so you know it's there. And I look at in our country, in the United States, when President Trump was in Pennsylvania and was shot, we would have detected that would-be shooter before they even parked their car because of the nature of this technology. People that come in to shoot poor children in schools I'll just use the United States as an example. You usually know there's a school shooter because he or she has already shot somebody. We can detect them as they come into the parking lot. because that nitrocellulose, if present, can be detected depending on where we have these sensors placed.
Hmm. Wow. I mean, yeah, and let me tell all the listeners, like, yeah, maybe a bit of a physics 101, but this is very interesting. This is something like, we have studied in our childhood, like sonar and all, like how there's this communication between frequencies of two different objects or, living beings, creatures. And Bo, just a quick question. So I think it can also detect bombs and all kind of bombs or shells and everything, right?
Yeah, I have to tell you, we can detect things that I can't even say publicly.
Oh.
Um, for certain reasons. We can detect things in depth that I can't even talk about publicly. We had a group in our offices one day that I'm not at liberty to say who they were, and we detected something 970 miles away with pinpoint accuracy. Yeah, it is it I will say this to you, it keeps you up at night. Yeah, I mean, it literally keeps you up at night. It's not just nitrocellulose. It's there if you imagine what's on the periodic table and you imagine the combinations of that can be, found, it will literally keep you up at night when you start to understand, what's possible, um, and it then listen, this is while Lee and I own this, neither one of us are scientists, electrical engineers, or physicists, but we have a team of people that are much smarter than us, much better than us, and who feel empowered to take this technology to its zenith. That how good can it be? So every day we're discovering new things. We're pushing the boundaries of physics. It's interesting. I was talking to somebody the other day, and my business partner and I were joking around that when Edison invented the light bulb, nobody could figure out for the longest time why it didn't turn blue because it got so hot. How did it
Mm.
stay the color it stated? And it took Max Planck, I think it was, 20 years to fully understand the physics of that. So it's, things sometimes happen before everyone understands how they happen or why they happen, but they still happen.
Mm, fascinating, super fascinating. One before we wrap up, Bo, like this is enormous, enormous. Because with this kind of mission, I also think that this is an enormous responsibility. There could be a risk of slipping into burnout, or maybe this enormous responsibility on his shoulders, like both for you, for Lee, for your team. On a very practical level, how do you lead when the stakes are literally life and death without collapsing under the pressure or turning your team into martyrs?
No, it's funny you say that. We talk, listen, we live in a space and with a technology that security is ultra important, not just for the technology, but for the people in front of it. So that's always something you're thinking about because it's like any technology. Picture this, like any technology, in the right hands for the right reasons, this can do things for humanity that very few things can do. In the wrong hands, it's like anything else in the wrong hands. A cell phone in the wrong hands is dangerous, right? The internet in the wrong hands is dangerous. Every great breakthrough in the right hands can impact humanity in a positive way, and in the wrong hands cannot. What our team does is our team has a shared mission. It is to impact the world in a great, powerfully good way. And so we just have to be mindful. That's why when you realize that we have smarter people than us working with us, we have people that will work nonstop to do this right. And you start to look at the step back and you look at that picture and you realize it's because we're all aligned. We want the same things. I know what it's like to have I know what it's like to have your throat cut open and filleted because you've got cancer and they're removing lymph nodes. And this technology could have detected that at its earliest stages because we got involved in this after my cancer. And I'm great now and everything's, cancer free. But I think when you start thinking about people's lives, people's children, people's grandparents, themselves, and then a technology as potentially beneficial to the world as this, you have to make the right decisions. You have to, because if you don't, I mean, all I can say is shame on you. Shame on you, because you have to do the right thing with something that's this powerful.
Totally, totally. Bo, before we conclude, I know we are short on time, but I think um, uh, many of our listeners would have in this their mind. I mean, it's a bit of a contradictory question, regarding the valuation here. Like, I want to zoom in on the $60.3 billion valuation. Like, listener brain hears that and goes, okay, is this real? Or like, jokingly, is this Theranos 2.0? I mean, it's a
No, it's okay. Oh, I think it's a more than fair question. Let me tell you how this came about. We went to a 25-plus-year-old firm that does conservative valuations for company, has worked with a huge portion of the Fortune 500 companies. It's led by a gentleman who at one time was the, um, the top patent holder at IBM. I mean, he's a genius guy. And we said, "We want a because it's pre-revenue at the time. We said, "We want a pre-revenue IP valuation on licensing." Because as he said, that's the only way you can do this, because since it's pre-revenue, the only way you could do this is on a licensing valuation, and you have to do it on apples versus apples. Not, "You guys can do things no one else can do, so let's guess what that can be." It's what else is out there that you would compete with in what you can do. We did it, and what they did, so it was out of our hands at that time. They did it in the United States, they did it in the EU, those were the 2 markets they looked at. But here's the important thing about understanding the valuation. We have this holding company called, it's BMRT, Base Molecular Resonance Technologies. But because that's such a mouthful, we just call it BMRT. But we have BMRT Holding, and from BMRT Holding are literally dozens and dozens of companies. BMRT Defense, BMRT Medical, BMRT Agriculture, BMRT Veterinary Services, BMRT Security, BMRT Mold, MOLD detection. I mean, and so what we did, so it's not a company, it's a technology that feeds dozens and dozens of different vertical companies. And so what we did is we took 56 specific use cases, and we didn't, they did. They took 56 specific use cases and derived I mean, this is like reading a book if you read it, a valuation based on the IP licensing potential in those 56 use cases that were across a number of different business verticals. I mean, if this was just one company, they may come back and say, "Oh, it's a $3.2 billion valuation." And everybody would go, "Wow, that's big." But because it's across multiple companies, that's where the $60.3 billion valuation out of our hands, but that's where that came from in very conservative estimates in the US and the EU. But listen, we're not naive. We understand that when you hear something that large, but I think that what I would kindly encourage people to realize that when you have a technology that is potentially this big, then you
Mm,
probably have a valuation that is potentially as large. So yeah, it's been that's been a journey for us.
makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense, Bo. Super, super. So I'm really glad that we went there, because it's quite expected that some founders would dodge that question or kind of spin it, but you actually lean into it. I'm really feeling grateful, because this is a great mirror. The valuation should be a tool, not a personality trait. And if your team cannot answer that, who are we without that number, then oh boy, you have work to do. So, Bo, thank you so much, first of all. And of course, if our listeners, if people would like to explore more around the work that you're doing, Lee is doing, BMRT is doing, and this really, really groundbreaking technology, how can they explore that? How can they reach out to you?
No, that's great. All you have to do is go to bmrt.io. and if you want to know who I am, you can go to bowshort.org. But the real secret to this is go to BMRT.io, because that's the work we do. If I could leave with just this thought, to plant this seed with founders and executives and people that are coming into, let's say, the tech space. It could be any space, but use tech for an example. I would tell you this: don't lose sight of the mission and never get lazy. It's like I look at AI, and everybody talks about AI. I'm a patent holder. I'm a co-author of an AI patent for our technology. But I look at AI as an example, and I think one of the mistakes people make is they think AI to me is an executive that sits in a boardroom with you that has a full range of knowledge, but it doesn't mean they're always right. And in the world of deep tech, what we've learned is AI can be very wrong unless you lead with the right questions and drive it. It's a great resource, but I find that companies in my country, for example, are many of them will go out of business because they think AI is always right, because respectfully, they're lazy. You can't be lazy. As the leader of an organization, you have to keep asking the right questions to the smart people and the right people for certain answers. But I would just encourage people, whatever it is your passion is, whatever it is you're pursuing in business, in tech, whatever it is, don't lose sight of the mission and keep doing the work. I have this belief that there's a lot of things none of us want to do, but my belief is this: on the other side of everything you do not want to do lives everything you want. So usually the hard work and the real success is driven through things you don't want to do versus things you just want to do that you're comfortable with. And just thank you for having me. You have been so kind and generous. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Bo, for this perfect closure to this conversation. This has been such a rich and honestly sobering conversation, because we have talked about massive opportunities, serious responsibility, hype, ethics, valuation, and then of course the emotional cost of leading something this big. So thank you so much, Bo. This has been really a very amazing opportunity for me as well to host you.
Thank you so much.
And to all the listeners, yeah, I'll have all the details in the show notes along with this episode. So go, do check out BMRT, connect with Bo, and to everyone listening, here is what I would possibly want you to walk away with. If you are building technology, your leadership is not proven by your pitch deck. It is proven by the lines you refuse to cross. If you are investing in or buying technology, do not just ask, what can this do? But rather, what will you not do with it? And if you're leading any team, tech, or maybe not, just remember that courage is not the absence of fear. It is your willingness to move forward with your eyes open. So, thank you to everyone for tuning into this episode of BizBlend. If you found value in this conversation, do show your love by following us and sharing this episode with your fellow colleagues, founder, friends, or your loved ones. And I'm your host, Sana, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you.